The Legal Sorcery, Chapter 5, Eldric Raincr, last free chief of Ashalonu, Pennsylvania Territory, 1754. I am the last free chief of a nation that once spanned 2 continents. My great-great-grandmother was Mari Ose Raincr, who saw the coming darkness in visions. My great-grandfather was Tama, who fought the first battles of the Long War. My grandmother was Ayana, stolen into slavery but who kept our stories alive in the sugar fields of Brazil. My father was Joseph Running Bear, who fought with the French against the English, believing Europeans might honor treaties differently than Spaniards honored prayers. I came here to negotiate our final treaty. Not surrender. There are fewer than 1,000 of us left free, scattered across territories that once held millions. But some arrangement that might let our children's children remember what we were. The American commissioners are polite, even respectful. They speak of our ancient friendship and our valuable contributions to colonial development. They offer us land, not our own land returned, but new land far from our sacred places, land that other tribes will soon be driven from in turn. But I can read now. I learned English and Latin and the law language they use to disguise theft as justice. I have studied their constitution, the document they claim establishes freedom and equality in this new world. It is the most sophisticated instrument of oppression ever created. They have found a way to practice slavery while proclaiming liberty, to commit genocide while maintaining innocence, to steal continents while upholding property rights. The magic is in the language itself. We are not called slaves. We are domestic dependents. Our lands are not called stolen. They are ceded by treaty. Our children are not called kidnapped. They are placed in Christian education for their own betterment. The Constitution counts African slaves as 3/5 of a person for the purpose of representation, but grants them no rights of citizenship. It promises to respect existing treaties with Indian nations, but defines us as domestic dependent nations, words that sound like sovereignty but actually mean subjugation. Most cunningly, it establishes the principle that federal law supersedes all previous arrangements. With the stroke of a pen, they can declare every treaty null and void, every promise forgotten, every agreement renegotiated under the barrel of a gun. The worst betrayal is that some of our own people now collaborate eagerly. They have been taught to see themselves as we never were, as inferior beings who should be grateful for white guidance. They compete to demonstrate their civilization by abandoning every trace of their heritage, by speaking English instead of their mother tongues, by worshiping the Christian God instead of the spirits of their ancestors. They call this assimilation, but it is actually cultural murder. Tonight, I will sign the treaty. Not because I believe in its justice, but because refusal means the immediate massacre of the last free families under my protection. In the morning, we will begin the long march to the lands they have designated for us. Lands that we know they will want back as soon as gold is discovered there, or oil, or anything else that makes ground valuable to the insatiable appetite of their expanding nation. But before I sign, I will hide this account where my descendants might someday find it. Let them know that we did not vanish from ignorance or inferiority. We were eliminated by design through the most sophisticated legal and military machine in human history. We were not conquered by better men. We were consumed by a hungrier system. Part 6. The Renaissance of Remembering. Chapter 6. Pearl Raincr, Secret Historian, Harlem, New York, 1925. They think I'm just another jazz-age flapper, another pretty brown girl writing love poems in the coffee houses of Harlem. They see me at the literary salons, laughing with Langston Hughes, debating with Zora Neale Hurston, dancing until dawn at the Cotton Club. They don't know I'm conducting the most important archaeological expedition in American history, not in the dirt, but in the archives. My name is Pearl Raincr, and I am the keeper of a secret that could shatter the official history of this continent. I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of Mari Ose Raincr, High Priestess of Ashalonu. Through 4 centuries of slavery, genocide, and cultural erasure, my family has passed down fragments of our true history, star maps carved into pottery shards, songs disguised as work hymns, genealogies hidden in the patterns of quilts. But fragments are not enough. I need proof that even white historians cannot deny. By day, I work as a secretary at the New York Public Library. By night, I slip into the restricted archives where the real documents are kept. The conquistadors' private letters, the plantation owners' account books, the government treaties never meant for public eyes. What I have discovered will change everything. The official story is that Europeans brought civilization to primitive wilderness, that Africans were brought as slaves to work colonial plantations, that Native Americans were scattered tribes who couldn't adapt to modernity. Every word is a lie. I have found Columbus's actual reports, not the sanitized versions in history books, but his private correspondence to the Spanish crown. He describes cities larger and more magnificent than Seville, astronomical observatories more accurate than those of Salamanca, agricultural systems more sophisticated than any in Europe. He brags about enslaving over 3,000 of their natural philosophers in his first year alone. Philosophers, not primitive savages, but scientists, mathematicians, doctors, engineers. I have found plantation records showing that the most valuable slaves were always former Indian royalty and Negro princes, people who commanded premium prices because of their education and leadership abilities. The slavers knew exactly what they were destroying. I have found treaty negotiations where American commissioners admit privately that they are dealing with more sophisticated governmental systems than our own, and that their goal is not to honor agreements, but to reduce native populations to manageable numbers through legal mechanisms. Most shocking of all, I have found the genealogical records they tried to destroy. The truth is that African slaves and Native American tribes were often the same people, separated by nothing more than the timing of their capture. The great civilizations of pre-Columbian America were connected to the great civilizations of Africa, Asia, and Polynesia through trade routes thousands of years old. We were never primitive peoples discovered by Europeans. We were the remnants of a global civilization that Europeans systematically destroyed. The paper trail proves it. Ship manifests listing West Indian Negroes alongside Virginia Indians in the same cargoes. Census records that reclassify the same families as colored, mulatto, Indian, or free Negro, depending on political convenience. Legal documents that deliberately obscure the true origins of enslaved peoples to prevent organized resistance. They scattered us across continents and centuries, gave us different names and different stories, taught us to see ourselves as separate peoples with separate struggles. But we were always one people, the children of Ashalonu, the inheritors of the star wisdom. The Harlem Renaissance is not just about Negro art and literature. It is about the resurrection of suppressed memory. When Marcus Garvey speaks of African pride, when Claude McKay writes of ancient glory, when Duke Ellington's music channels rhythms older than slavery, we are all reaching toward the same hidden truth. We were kings and queens before we were slaves. We were scientists before we were laborers. We were free before we were found. But knowing is not enough. The truth must be preserved, hidden, protected until the world is ready to hear it. I am creating a secret archive. Copies of the most damning documents, coded maps of hidden burial sites, genealogical charts that prove the connections between families scattered across 4 centuries. I am hiding these materials in locations that my descendants will be able to find through the symbols our ancestors taught us to read. Someday, when the time is right, when the legal and cultural machinery of oppression finally weakens, our children will have the proof they need to reclaim their inheritance. The truth is like a seed buried in winter. It waits in darkness until the season comes for it to grow toward light.